Hi everyone, I thought I would do something kind of the same but different in a way. I found an old USB when I was at my mum's, and I found a document that I wrote on the 20th of November 2011, and it was called Being Diagnosed with Asperger's Syndrome. Now, I thought that I would actually just read you this document because this was written about a year and a half after I was diagnosed with AS, and it actually shows that it did at the start, when I was first diagnosed, have a big impact on my life, but why I actually saw it for the better. And this was me writing back then. This hasn't been changed. I'm not going to change any words. This was me back in 2011 speaking about being diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome. Before I was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, I didn't do much. Most of the time I would just sit in my room on my computer. I hadn't managed to stay in college, which I always wanted to do since leaving high school, and I didn't understand why I found it so difficult. After being diagnosed, my life changed, but what I never expected was for my life to change for the better. Growing up, I was always told to look out for my older brother as he has Asperger's syndrome. I knew a lot about AS and had seen how it had affected my brother at school. While at high school, I developed panic and anxiety attacks, and after struggling with them for 3 years, my second therapist suggested that I should be tested for Asperger's syndrome. I was really shocked that she had suggested this, and at the time I couldn't see what made her think that I should be tested. The lady came to my house, but the thought of being asked all these questions was scary. The questions I was asked didn't make any sense to me. When I was asked, can I read facial expressions, I didn't know if I had given the correct answer. I went into Edinburgh to number 6, a place that supports adults who are on the autistic spectrum, to find out if I had been diagnosed or not. When the lady said to me that I had been diagnosed with AS, I went numb. I didn't know how to react. My mum, who was with me, said it would be fine if I wanted to cry, but I felt too in shock to do or say anything. I was never told what had made them come to this conclusion that I had AS. I was very confused. On the train home, it suddenly hit me what had just happened, and I was so upset I was fighting back the tears. I knew that I needed someone to talk to, so I rang a friend who had always supported me in the past. I was in floods of tears asking her to come over, but when I told her what had happened, it suddenly went silent and she made excuses. It was as if no one understood or even tried to understand how this affected me. I was so alone. No one I knew had been diagnosed at the age of 18. My brother and another friend had been diagnosed as children. I had always wanted to succeed in life, and I couldn't stop worrying about how this could possibly affect my life. Would I be able to cope with going back to college? Would I ever be able to get a job? Now, after having one-to-one support with number 6, it was as if a big weight had been lifted off my back. I have a place where people understand my diagnosis, and I feel comfortable going there. At number 6, they ran a late diagnosis group, and in the group we were taught about AS and how it affects people. We were able to talk about how it affected us and learn from each other. The groups were sometimes upsetting, but now I understand a lot more on how this will affect me, and in one of the groups I learned about my brain and a bit more about what was going on and why I think the way I do. I learned more about myself from going to these groups and why I have always felt very different to other people I have met. Number 6 has a recreational groups like yoga, pool, writing, and a photography group. I'm not scared to go there, and I don't feel judged. I feel accepted. I still don't talk a lot in the group, but I don't feel pressured to talk to anyone. I am now kind of grateful for my diagnosis, as I can get support with going to college, volunteering, and when I'm ready to get a job. I see my brother doing well and being trained in a bakery. They train people with AS there, and I am no longer scared as I was when I was first diagnosed. I have a lot of help going to college, which I wouldn't have had before. My support worker came with me in the first couple of weeks of college and set up support for me within the college, which I wouldn't have been able to do before. At the time I was diagnosed, I was very angry and very upset. It made me depressed, but now I think if I hadn't been diagnosed with AS, I wouldn't be at college. It would be one of the scariest things for me. I never thought that I would ever get back into education. I'm a very different person than I was a few years ago, which is a good thing for me as I'm doing lots of new things. I become more open, and I'm not afraid of admitting what I find difficult. A few years ago I was ashamed of myself for finding things difficult, but now I see other people the same as me. My whole life has changed, but what surprised me is it's changed for the better. Without being diagnosed with AS, I wouldn't be who I am now. looking back on that, I am actually amazed at how much my life has then changed again. This was like 6 years ago now, and my life has completely changed. I have a job where I support people myself. I have my own flat. I'm in a relationship now, and I'm far more confident now than what I was then to even talk about what I find difficult and actually admit that I need help and support. I think for me reading this, it actually shows me that when I was first diagnosed, I felt like extremely lost, like so many people that messaged me, and I felt so upset and angry, which I've probably forgotten about. But those are okay things to feel, and in time you will accept it and embrace it. And I think that's the way forward. Embrace it, accept everything that you can get from a diagnosis, support, or don't be scared. Because I was scared, and this was me a year later, and it took me a year to actually be like, okay, this is a good thing that I now have an understanding of why I found things difficult in the past. And I think without my diagnosis, I definitely wouldn't have achieved or have what I have now. And I honestly believe that. And I think from being open, we can only move forward and things can only get better. So I'd love to actually see where I am in 6 years from making this video. Like, I bet my whole life is completely changed again, just like it has changed from when I wrote that letter. And I'm actually so happy that I found it, because it's actually opened my eyes on how difficult I did find things when I was first diagnosed, but how far I've come, and I think it's amazing.